I feel like I'm a little bit late to the party. That everybody's talking about this video, but for me, it's hard for me to just jump into something without doing a really heavy amount of research. I don't like saying something unless I feel like something I'm saying is something that's actually adding to a conversation or is really, really elucidating a point within the conversation so that I'm just not fodder. Everything that I do has to make sense to me. And so now I feel like much, much more prepared and able to talk about this Katt Williams situation. Just like everyone else, when I saw that Katt Williams was going on Club Shay Shay, I was excited. And the reason why I was so excited was because I'd already been following a lot of the Katt Williams situation and the way that he had been speaking about Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish, and I'd seen Kevin Hart's response. I knew all of this stuff was brewing. And what was even more crazy was I remember when he did his conspiracy theory tour in 2016 and he was talking about all of these things, he had already been kind of labeled as one of those people that you can't talk to, or at least one of those people that is willing to say the things that most people in Hollywood would not. He mentioned phrases like Illuminati and things like that, but then he would also kind of give his own interpretation of those phrases so that it didn't take on some of the nonsense that comes with tinfoil hat ridiculousness. So anyway, look, the Club Shay Shay interview is important, but I feel like I want to go and deal with everything that was said there. And in order to do so, then there has to be given a greater context. I want to be able to fully explain the situation. So let's start where he was first talking to a lady named Wanda Smith. Now he went on a radio show and he began talking to a lady named Wanda Smith. And in that, he kind of had some excoriating words for Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart. So that interview, that conversation opened up with the guy basically mentioning to him that he really knows how to put on a comedy special. I'm going to preface this by saying that Katt Williams has a tendency to really up himself. And I feel like he feels like he needs to do that because he hasn't taken the traditional route in Hollywood. So he doesn't have the same type of publicists and people like that that are going to constantly sell him for who he is and what he's accomplished. So he feels the need to do that himself. And so when people ask him questions, he's like, oh, this is an opportunity to inform people about whatever, because I'm not part of the Hollywood machine that's going to tell everyone everything that I'm accomplishing. So the guy opens up by by mentioning,
can I talk to you and tell me what does it take to make a great special, sir? Because nobody makes them like you.
Katt Williams responds,
that only speaks to quantity. I do have more comedy specials than any comedian breathing or dead, so I understand the question.
7 more than Richard Pryor, 6 more than Martin, 6 more than Chris Rock, 5 more than Dave Chappelle.
Even though he put out 4. And the next.
Are you serious, Katt? You've put out that many?
Those are just facts, sir.
This seems like that's not completely accurate. So Richard Pryor has at least 5 specials, okay? Because his first one was called Live and Smoking. Then he does one called This What? Crazy. Then there's one called Is It Something I Said? Bicentennial. What? Here and Now. So he has a bunch of specials, but there's a very big difference. When Richard Pryor was doing his specials, they were albums. They were recorded on vinyl. In fact, that's how some of that's how some of Bill Cosby's specials are. They're on vinyl. 2 of my really good friends have one of his vinyls. They just bought it in a big old bulk where they got a bunch of them. One of them called Believe Me, It's True, right? By Bill Cosby. It doesn't age well as far as the title is concerned, even though, I don't think there's any evidence to convict Cosby. My point being, yes, so these things were recorded on vinyl. So they weren't TV televised recorded specials. They were just recorded on vinyl and then produced. At one point he sold one with one company, but then that company ended up going bankrupt kind of. And so then he immediately joined Warner Brothers, I believe it was. And then Warner Brothers re-released his special and then it started selling well again. So if you look at television specials, then maybe you start getting into whatever. You start getting into different numbers, and these things can be classified in different ways. Sometimes a person will have a special on Def Comedy Jam. Does that count as a special? I'm pretty sure Katt Williams does not consider that a special. Obviously, if you're with a group of people, that's not considered special. But anyway, the point I was making is that these numbers don't add up. Richard Pryor does have at least 5 specials. Very strict definition for specials. Not all television, because again, some of these were released in like 1970 something. But then it's like, yeah, no, these weren't TV specials. You would just do it on record. But these were obviously comedy specials. So then when he mentioned Dave Chappelle, at the time, he said 7 more than Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle had more than 2 specials at the time. This interview was coming in 2018. It just depends, again, how strictly you want to define a special. And so that first statement already sounds like it's not exactly true, but it depends on how you define it. So then I can't call it an outright lie. Then he mentioned that he had the top 2 comedy specials
on Showtime, HBO, Comedy Central, and we just moved to Netflix.
And I don't know where he got those metrics from. Again, when throughout these conversations, he makes a bunch of statements. And some of these statements are like going to be impossible for most of us to check. But these are just the statements that he makes. For example, he mentions,
I'm 50. I've never had a bank loan or a car lease in my life.
Are you serious?
That's correct.
when you make those kind of statements, and it's like, oh, that's kind of weird. And so you look it up, and it's like, well, he wasn't 50 at the time; he was 47. So he's generalizing, and so that's the statement that he makes. But it shows that what he's been doing this entire time, because he also mentioned he owns all of his special. He owns and produced all of his specials up to that point, besides his new one that was going to be coming out on Netflix. And so you start realizing this is a person that is kind of operating and functioning from his own space. Having been a person that's operated in that kind of space on different levels and doing different things, then it makes all the sense in the world. So that's just the way that things operate when people do things themselves. Because of that, then he's not going to be on some of those lists and stuff, but that's going to come up later in Kevin Hart's response. He then goes on to mention that he's had
15th consecutive 100 city tour. Netflix had just cut me a check for $2 million for the special that I got paid $300,000 to do in Jacksonville.
Are you serious?
Or I'm really good at jokes, you tell me.
When these things come up, again, Netflix doesn't actually publish what they're paying people, so we don't know what those actual numbers are, but that's what he's claiming to have done. Then he mentioned that
Pimp Chronicles has already grossed over $24 million alone as one special.
Then he goes into a conversation about, ticket sales and how Netflix pays. And he said that
They base what they pay you by the amount of ticket sales for your last tour.
Yeah, so he mentioned that Pimp Chronicles already grossed him $24 million. This special came out in 2006, so that was over 12 years. It was released on HBO, but then he continued to make the sales of it, and it was sold on Amazon and all these various other places. And obviously, he got crazy notoriety as time went on, which caused people to go back to it. I think it is his most successful special, but I couldn't find anywhere where they track those numbers because, again, he's not very much part of the Hollywood machine, so then it's really hard to get that. He mentions that he had sold $2.4 million on his last tour, which is over 100 cities and God knows how many different stops within those 100 cities. And so then he said, so that's why he got the deal he was. But he says otherwise they'll give you a special, but no one's going to watch it.
The fact of the matter is what makes a great comedy special is if 100 people talk at the same time that you talking, are you saying something different than them people are saying?
No.
Because if you are, then you deserve a special. And if you don't, you're going to find out you're not special.
This is when he takes his very first shot at a comedian, and he mentions Gerard Carmichael.
Because they're going to let you do your special, Gerard Carmichael, but nobody's going to watch it.
He starts taking a shot at a bunch of comedians.
They're going to let you be a star, Lil Rel, but you ugly.
So then when he's asked about Girls Trip and Tiffany Haddish, things take a darker turn because he kind of starts mentioning in a way that he almost sort of implies that Tiffany Haddish isn't particularly funny.
You only got Tiffany Haddish. She been doing comedy since she was 16. You can't tell me your favorite Tiffany Haddish joke. Why? Because she ain't done a tour yet. She ain't done a special. She has not proven the ability to tell jokes back to back for an hour to nobody.
But when, the other person is speaking about her, he says during that thing, he says, I love her.
Do her thing.
She passed 46 female black comedians that I know personally that I put on tour who have a hard time getting a chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A after they headlined 7 shows at a club for $2,500 a week.
And he felt like she was almost getting special treatment. And then he kind of labels her as having spent all her time with the white husband and that she married a white man and that she mentioned that she wanted to be with Brad Pitt and that's why she was getting special treatment. That's why Hollywood loved her, not just because she was ratchet, but because she pretty much praised white men.
Incredible, knock it off. They like her because she want to sleep with a white man. That's why the only thing she said was, I want to give it to Brad Pitt. The only thing before that in the movie with me is I slept with this white man and I got a white baby. She had a white husband for the 14 years she been doing comedy, and then all of a sudden divorced him, then said he abused her, then wrote a book, then said he didn't. And then now we're at Brad Pitt.
I believe this is a statement that isn't true. All of that to say, during this interview, he eventually gives his main point for what he was here. And I'm going to read it. He said, "We are in the only business where as a black woman, what you look like is not supposed to be held against you."
And time again, they show you that you can be sidetracked by anything light-skinned.
And in this case, he's basically saying that there were females that he had been trying to help that were black female comedians who he has done a lot to support, and that those ones were getting passed up by Tiffany Haddish. This is obviously true. Kevin Hart even kind of explains how this happens when he explains that he's giving opportunities to Tiffany Haddish. He's kind of taken her underneath his wing, and he's used his platform to help her achieve this success. But Kevin Hart is probably the most successful comedian. Financially, he has to be the most successful comedian, demanding more than any other comedian. So at this point, he gets to do what he wants to do. And so that her being underneath his umbrella, it makes all the sense in the world. Now, this is kind of where things take a darker turn. He was doing this thing with another person at the time, and Wanda Smith eventually asked that person about his children and talks to that guy. And then Katt Williams' children get brought up into the conversation, and she's asking about what he cooks. And they start kind of going back and forth. And then finally he asks her, what does she cook? She mentions, I can do a good broccoli. He immediately kind of insults her. And she kind of like was being a little pushy and a little testy at the beginning. Like, hey, you're not answering my question. Is it just because you're a poor interviewer? I was answering your question, which he really wasn't. And things kind of really took a dark turn. The first time when I saw this, I laughed my head off because you do not get into a roast fest with Katt Williams. He was absolutely destroying this woman. But then upon rewatching it, I kind of realized, man, he's bullying this woman.
I do a really nice broccoli. They like my broccoli and they love my baked chicken.
Hey, right now, look up your phone and see what it takes to make broccoli. And tell me, does it say heat up water?
Shut up.
Is that the only step in broccoli? Heat up water?
Whatever.
Have you ever heard of burned broccoli? Can you burn broccoli? You can't burn it because it's made in a pot of water.
You don't know nothing about.
You know what her second meal they love from her? What I do with corn.
Whatever.
I like to get it out that can and I put it in there. And then I get a can of water and I put it on there. And then I get some Zatarain's. They don't expect that. I sprinkle Zatarain's on my
great
corn.
cook. Whatever.
Yes, ma'am. You good at heating stuff up.
You're good at telling us about what's going on in jail.
Yes, ma'am, and getting out to tell you. But I'm going to tell you at an arena named Phillips, and you going to tell me at the Atlanta Comedy Theater.
Right.
She's like, she took a few, the lightest of jabs, and he just went in for quite some time. She clearly lost control of the situation, needed to stop, tried to take a shot. You heard crickets.
And help me get to the salon. All right, it's the People Station Viewer 3. Your hair is kind of...
That joint was.
My hair is 19 inches long and I have no perm.
So all of that to say, it seemed really, really bad, and it felt like he was bullying her. And while a lot of people's commentary was revolving around the idea of just how much she got roasted, mine was more about like, man, you're this successful of a comedian. You're really kind of bullying this woman. It felt really awful to me. Kevin Hart finally goes on the Breakfast Club and he decides he's going to respond. Very shortly after the situation, him and Tiffany Haddish go on the Breakfast Club together to address the statements that Katt Williams made. So Kevin Hart makes a bunch of claims and he really goes on to basically say that
I have time to not be humble today. I have time to fact check everything he said because the world of Katt Williams is a fictional world.
He mentions that, like when they kind of talk about like the difference in pay between comedians.
Look, I know what the conversations are. Look, I'm all about the female growth, especially in entertainment. I think that women and the voices that are coming from these women should be heard and the opportunities should be given.
Envy takes a little bit of a joke and says,
Tiff is the biggest star in the movie, so she should be.
Kevin Hart responds like, nah, if you're going to go with that. Like,
within box office draw, what people ignore is that within a talent, there's box office draw and there's box office success.
And I think that's a valid point because if you look at what Tiffany Haddish did in Girls Trip, that was an amazing performance by her. I actually found that to be quite funny. The fact of the matter is, one, she didn't write those parts. Two, that movie had some of the 4 biggest Black female celebrities in it. And so it's hard to give that credit to Tiffany Haddish, and people didn't see that movie because Tiffany Haddish was in it, despite the fact that we would all probably say she had the most memorable role within that movie. But that's not why people went to see it. She was not a box office draw. She was part of what became a humongous box office success, though, without a doubt. But those are two different things. People will go see a movie specifically because Kevin Hart is in it or because Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is in it. People will see a movie because Will Smith, his name is attached to it. We're going to go see that movie, right? That's box office draw. Now, sometimes those movies will be particularly successful because the draw coupled with picking a good movie is going to make it successful. This was a direct response to Katt Williams basically talking about how Tiffany Haddish didn't write that part. Because when Wanda Smith was trying to give Tiffany Haddish credit for saying she was really funny in this movie, he was like, yeah, but...
Did you think she wrote Girls Trip Goofball?
Right.
Or do you think that was already a script and they handed it to her? Ma'am, you could have had that role and everything that happened would have happened unless you thought you were necessary to write the Saturday Night Live monologue.
I disagree. I think Tiffany Haddish has a specific kind of flair about her, and I think that a lot of that was baked into that. I can imagine that maybe that character might have been written for her, or maybe that character was already kind of there and she fit the character. Maybe it did morph a little bit. You can't deny that a person's personality is going to play into that character, and it does seem to be the role that the character that she was already playing, but she didn't write that. And so when Kevin Hart was like talking about it, he was like,
don't shit on my sister Light because you're not happy with your shit. This shit is earned. It's not given. I don't give a fuck if you're a Tiffany Haddish fan or not. It's earned. Tiffany Haddish got years in the game. It's not an accident that Tiffany Haddish got an opportunity to star in a movie. It's not an accident that that character popped in the movie. Written or not written, a character has to pop it.
He mentions a thing about like the broader narrative. You guys remember back in 2009, people were boycotting the Oscars and they said, hey, and he said, hey, look.
What do we want? We complain that people of color weren't getting opportunities in Hollywood. We were getting ignored for the Oscars, for the Emmy. When the people of color get these opportunities,
At all.
why are the people of color the ones that are tearing the people that are getting the opportunities down? You don't realize when I preach about the crabs in the barrel mentality that eventually we have to take responsibility for our actions.
He decides to address the very people.
Because they're going to let you do your special, Gerard Carmichael, but nobody's going to watch it. They're going to let you be a star, Lil Rel, but you ugly. And white people don't believe in ugly stars. They think you have to be somebody that women want to sleep with and men want to be. But because we black, they say, oh, you don't even deserve that. So you get Kevin Hart, Lil Rel, Gerard Carmichael, all in a row, Hannibal Buress, just dudes that no woman would talk to in Lenox Mall.
Kevin Hart addresses all of those statements, and he mentions,
I'm going to bring up the people that Katt Williams named. Lil Rel, Gerard Carmichael, Hannibal Buress, myself, Tiffany Haddish. Lil Rel is seeing so much success after doing his special Relevant. He went on to do Get Out. He now has a show that he's producing and starring in on Fox. Gerard Carmichael had his own show that he starred, wrote, produced. Gerard Carmichael was on to his second special. Hannibal Buress saw success within comedy specials and is now doing various movies where he's getting the opportunity to have features and to have a present. Me, Kevin Hart, I've shot over 56 specials for the up-and-coming generation of comedy. Why? Because I'm trying to create opportunities for others. So rather than complaining about it, I'm fixing it. I'm putting my money where my mouth is.
Then he takes his first shots at Katt Hart's, and this is where it gets particularly relevant. I'm sorry, all of this build-up in context is necessary because when we go into the Club Shay Shay interview, you have to fully understand where all this is coming from, and then everything starts making sense, and all the pieces start falling in a row. At this point, originally he'd been talking just about success and so on and so forth, and now he says, now towards Katt, when do you take
responsibility for your actions? You had the shot.
Katt was in that position at one point.
You were the guy. You were set up to be the star. You didn't show up to work. You fucked off promo shoots. You fucked off your promo fucking trips that they had set up for you. You became a risk to the studios, which is why the studios stopped fucking with you.
Charlamagne says, why did he do that? And he says,
he chose drugs.
Oh, okay.
Take responsibility for what you chose and say, you know what? I got to fix me. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to stand up for comedy.
So this is not the very first time that Katt Williams has been accused of being on drugs. When he was doing his conspiracy tour and talking about the Illuminati and stuff, people were saying, oh, these are signs of drugs. And it could have been marijuana-induced psychosis. But that's a really important claim because that comes up in Club Shay Shay about his drug usage several times. And so that detail was really important. He spent a lot of time talking about, Katt, when do you take responsibility for your actions? So then at this point, he kind of gives credit to some of the people who are under Katt Williams' umbrella.
Shouts out to Melanie Camacho. Shouts out to Lunel. Shouts out to Leslie Jones, who are all underneath the umbrella of Katt Williams. Katt Williams, have you ever used your platform to fucking bring the people that were under you up?
Mentions that Tiffany earned her platform and the opportunity that she's getting. She said that she got years in the game, which Katt Williams had acknowledged. He'd been doing comedy since 16, but he acknowledged it disparagingly. He said,
you only got Tiffany Haddish. She been doing comedy since she was 16. You can't tell me your favorite Tiffany Haddish joke. Why? Because she ain't done a tour yet. She ain't done a special. She has not proven the ability to tell jokes.
Tiffany Haddish is just like, she kind of there. It's mentioned that she forgives him, and she does what I thought was a pretty funny joke.
I was like, dang, what'd I do to him? Did I fuck his man?
I thought that was a pretty funny line. But then that's when she said, he got his facts wrong, and she clears it up.
I've been proposed to by a white man before, and then found out he was really black when we did that DNA test. But it is what it is.
So you weren't married to a white man?
No, never.
I know
been.
that, but whatever.
But here's where it's really interesting. She mentions that Katt Williams apologized. He came up to her and said,
listen, let me explain what's going on.
They began pressing her. Oh, really? What did he say? Kevin Hart interrupts it and said,
I want to step in because I'm going to let my sister keep it classy.
Yeah.
Somebody kicked my sister ball over the fence. I want it back. It doesn't matter what he said. It doesn't matter what the apology was.
So you didn't like the apology?
It's not about the apology.
But basically, we'll never know, because I don't know if Tiffany Haddish ever went and told this story, what Katt Williams said in his quote-unquote apology. What he explained was the reasoning, but apparently Tiffany Haddish knows, and maybe that's why she doesn't have any smoke for him. Because, again, it wasn't like he was just completely hating on her. He didn't say that she wasn't funny. He didn't say that, he just said that.
Understand, she passed 46 female black comedians that I know personally that I put on tour who have a hard time getting a chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A after they headlined 7 shows at a club for $2,500 a week. But knock it off. They like her because she want to sleep with a white man. That's why the only thing she said was, I want to give it to Brad Pitt. The only thing before that in the movie with me is I slept with this white man and I got a white baby. She had a white husband for the 14 years she been doing comedy, and then all of a sudden divorced him, then said he abused her, then wrote a book, then said he didn't.
It wasn't that he was hating on her comedy or any of those other things. Although it was clearly disparaging, I don't think it was hate-filled. He did say, I love her, and so on and so forth. But it is a mixed signal to say, I love you, but I'm going to explain all of the reason why your talent isn't deserved, or why your success isn't deserved, and why you're being why the gates are being opened for you by a person who's undeserving of who's a Hollywood plant, and all of these things. It's hard for me to really see the love, to be 100% fair. So at this point, Kevin starts getting into his own numbers.
Right now, all this stuff is Googleable. Is Google. You can Google it. It's all fucking researchable information. I am sitting on 1.3 million tickets sold. Shouts out to all the comedians that have given me the opportunity to get here, because I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without them and their hard work. There is nobody close to me in ticket sales and comedy.
And you on a worldwide tour.
I am worldwide. I am on par with the likes of your Bruno Mars, your Jay-Z, and Beyonce.
And I looked it up. And yes, indeed, Kevin Hart is the first comedian to sell 1 million tickets in less than 6 months. Then he addresses the 15 consecutive 100 city tours.
Also, to say 15 consecutive 100 city tours is false. What are you doing? So where did you do the new stuff? When did you ever work on something? Consecutive means in a row. Where?
The thing is, Katt Williams is always touring. Now, they're not always headline tours because he's not part of the Hollywood machine. It's somewhat similar to someone like Angelina Jolie, where Angelina Jolie doesn't have a publicist. Because she doesn't have a publicist, she does a lot of things, and then most of those things don't catch highlights. Now, when she adopts foreign kids, that's going to get highlights. But a lot of the stuff that she was doing was never it wasn't where every little step she was making was being scrutinized to the same degree, because she didn't have a publicist. A lot of times Hollywood needs a publicist in order to make those things pop the way that they do. A perfect example of this is when Raven Simone was on the Wendy Williams show, and she mentioned, they were like, hey, you don't always have all this buzz. You don't always have the paparazzi stuff. And she said, well, yeah, you can do things to attract that. I just drive like a regular car and show up to places that I want to go and do the things that I want to do. But if I want to show up in a limousine with a little bit of a motorcade and all of those things, then yeah, the paparazzi are going to be there, because as soon as they see this and I'm in Hollywood, then that's what they're looking for. You choose to attract that type of attention. If you choose not to, you can still do the successful things without getting all of that attention. There is a method to all of that. So if I'm doing things myself and independently producing it, then I'm probably not going to have the same fanfare. I'm not going to be on the Forbes list, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So then at this point, he says, so when Katt Williams is doing all of these shows and things like that, these numbers aren't going to be the same place. And so then that's when Kevin Hart says,
Katt Williams did not own all the specials. He trashes the white man. The white man owns your content. You don't own it.
Now, I tried doing my best to research this to find out who owns these specials, and you don't know, because those kind of details aren't given. What we do know is that Kevin Hart then makes a statement that he owns his own specials. And the only thing that his specials have in common, or his specials like the Pimp Chronicles, are also sold on HBO. I mean, his specials were on HBO, and he claims he owns those specials, just like the Pimp Chronicles is on HBO, and Katt Williams claims he owns that special. Katt Williams claims to have produced all of his specials. Now, if this isn't true, I would expect someone to come forward and say otherwise. So far, no one has done so. At this point, Charlamagne asks him.
So Katt Williams don't own none of his specials?
False.
Now, this is just absolutely not true. We know that Katt Williams has produced some of his own specials that he has owned. There's no doubt about that. I don't know which specific ones, but yeah, all of his specials aren't like done through the same exact machines and same channels. He does own some of his specials without a doubt. I don't know how you can make the statement he doesn't own any of his specials, but I think maybe he was in his feelings. Maybe he was cutting it up. Like when he was, maybe he expected Charlamagne to say he didn't own all of his specials, and so he was saying no to that. But what Charlamagne asked was, does he own any of his specials? To which Kevin Hart said no, false. Then he mentions that
because she ain't done a tour yet. She ain't done a special. She has not proven the ability to tell jokes.
To which Kevin Hart says,
she's got two. She's got two.
The two at the time were one of them From the Hood to Hollywood, She Ready. Then the second one was Black Mitzvah. Now, From the Hood to Hollywood, that existed before this interview. The Black Mitzvah wasn't released until later, like slightly later after this, but it was shot already to my knowledge. Now, Kevin Hart says,
another fact.
So it's not about tickets?
No.
What's that about?
It's not about tickets. It's about your brand. It's about your return. If I'm a business and I want to invest a high amount of money in you, how am I getting my money back?
And he says that he made $40 million. Now to this, there's a little bit of backstory with the whole Monique situation, because when Monique was trying to get paid and she was trying to get her offer, Katt Williams said that.
So Monique's last tour had 316,000 tickets. Therefore, that's what she got offered.
Monique went on to say that Robbie Prohl told her husband and their attorney during negotiations that they base it off of your draw. There's that draw word again. And so Monique was like, well, is it based on the resume? And he said, no, it's not based on the resume. And so then they mentioned with Amy Schumer that she had sold out Madison Square Garden twice and she had a hit movie in 2017. So then Monique is like, okay, then with all due respect, isn't that a resume? That's what her husband says. Isn't that her resume? He gets quiet. Then he says, we understand the point you're making. We'll work on it and we'll come back to you. Because if it is based on ticket sales, aka the Madison Square Garden, then that would be one thing. If it's not ticket sales, but it's a combination of ticket sales and the other things that you're doing, such as your draw, like the movies you're doing, that would be resume. To which Monique would be able to say, I have a pretty extensive resume. I can be a good draw as well. So now we know that Tiffany did have two specials at the time that they made this statement, only one of which had already been released when Katt Williams said what he had to say. And so now when Kevin Hart is saying that they don't base it off of ticket sales, I don't understand what else they would base it off of. But I don't know that they base it purely off of ticket sales, because clearly there would be other things. There would be draw and return. There are going to be bonuses just based off of one, your negotiating power, and whether or not they think that you have something to bring to them. In Dave Chappelle's case, obviously Dave Chappelle is one of the most successful and prolific and sought after comedians in the world, despite his attempted cancellation. If you remember, all of the special deals back then were talked about as HBO specials. The person who brought comedy to Netflix in such a profound way was Dave Chappelle. From that point, HBO specials were no longer the important deal. It was about Netflix specials. And pretty much every other comedian followed suit, which is why they were willing to offer Dave Chappelle so much, especially considering he's one of, again, the most prolific and sought after comedians in the world. Now, Kevin Hart might be one of the biggest box office draws because they have two totally different styles. Kevin Hart is doing movies. He just appeals to a totally different audience. Dave Chappelle is appealing to strictly stand up, whereas Kevin Hart is just more so, I would say, appealing to box office as opposed to stand up. Anyway, with all that being said, there is that. So now they are contradicting each one another. Then Kevin Hart goes into the story talking about Tiffany Haddish was homeless.
I'm talking about a real grind.
Right.
Homeless, no bed, back seat, washing your ass in bathroom sinks.
Now, this is another important detail because Katt Williams talked about how he was homeless. Steve Harvey mentioned how he was homeless. And so many more comedians keep mentioning the story about being homeless and just like struggling, right? All that to say, from Kevin Hart's interview with Breakfast Club, he sums up his main point, which is this: we complain we don't have.
Then we get, and now we tear down those that are getting what we said we don't have. Make a decision. I'm gonna ride with whatever decision we make. Y'all on the platform. Help me figure out so I know what we're sticking to. Maybe I'm wrong.
And I get it. He basically feels like there were all of these conversations. There was a boycott in 2009-ish, I want to say, around Hollywood. And there was a boycott around the Oscars saying that black people weren't getting shots and things like that. And so then at that point, now things were changing and people were getting better opportunities and they were seeing box office success with some of Kevin Hart's movies. And he had said, he was told directly to his face.
I was a person that was told movies can't translate overseas with black leads in comedy. I was told that to my face. I begged for those opportunities. I pushed for them. I got them. And now you see more movies with people of color in the lead position getting those opportunities.
And Tiffany Haddish is another person that he was helping, which is also a lot sounds like gatekeeping, to be 100% real. If I'm the person at the door that they now recognize as a reputable source who can tell you who the it guy is, and I'm saying, hey, this is a good person and I want her up there and I'm using my platform for that, that sounds like gatekeeping. All throughout the Breakfast Club interview, Kevin Hart is describing Gatekeeping 101. I have my platform and I'm using it for people underneath me and underneath my umbrella to lift them up into some of these successful circles so that they can do these things as well.
Me, Kevin Hart, the guy that sits on top right now, have taken advantage of all the money that I have. I've shot over 56 specials for the up-and-coming generation of comedy. Why? Because I'm trying to create opportunities for others. Rather than complaining about it, I'm fixing it. I'm putting my money where my mouth is.
That's gatekeeping 101. During this interview, Charlamagne tries to downplay the race issue like, it's whatever. And then Kevin Hart quickly fixes the narrative and says, wait.
I can say that there has been a heavy separation within races and opportunity in the entertainment business. I can say all the complaints that have been given over the past are not only correct, but worthy of the attention that they got. Okay? Within all the movements, within all the conversation, within we need more. You goddamn right.
I feel like Charlamagne was trying to tear down the race argument, and Kevin Hart sets the record straight. Tiffany Haddish then goes on to say, anyone who has given me an opportunity has been black.
So to me, when they say, the white man, whatever, to me, I don't see it that way. I mean, it's been black or Hispanic, Middle Eastern, but mostly black people have helped me. And
then Kevin Hart goes on to say that he owns all of his specials except for the Netflix one.
You doing that with your stand-up, though? You
Yes,
own
I
all your
have.
stand-ups, right?
Yes, I own
Really?
all
For
of
real
them.
now, not just for radio?
This is not, once again, this is all researchable information. Well, not the one that I just shot.
Okay.
That's Netflix.
And he keeps making this appeal that, hey, these are facts. We can fact check these things. Except I don't know where you go online to find out who actually owns a special. Unless you own it and you publicize that you own it, we won't know. Then he goes and he dresses like Lil Rel and says like, yeah, I helped Lil Rel with his special. I had the opportunity to. And he's very, very humble in his way of approaching it, which he has the ability to do so because he's so successful. If you have a level of success, you don't need to up yourself because one, the media is already doing it for you. The numbers already speak for themselves. You're already like kind of Hollywood's darling in this way. So then at this point, I can say whatever I want to. I can be as humble as I want to be because the numbers are already there. The success is already there. The opportunities are there in progress. More are on their way. I don't need to worry about upping myself. So then he's like, no, Lil Rel did it. And, he was just really gracious enough to help me. I was honored to be a part of it. Just putting another comedian first. And I think it's a respectful thing to do, but it's not, I don't know how genuine it is because again, when you're that successful, you don't have to brag. You just don't have to. The numbers already speak for themselves. So now at this point, you get to put on your humility cloak. And that's what Kevin Hart does very, very well. I don't know that it's not real. I don't know this man. I don't know his character. But that's what he was doing as far as making sure that Lil Rel was getting his props. After all of those things, now you understand the backdrop of those things because these things were heavily publicized in the media. Katt Williams went on to do other interviews in like less reputable places and talk about Kevin Hart and called him being a plant and talked about him wearing dresses and all of those things. Now we get to Katt Williams' Club Shay Shay interview. Now, after all of this happened, you have to realize Ricky Smiley had gone on Club Shay Shay first. Steve Harvey had been on Club Shay Shay. Cedric the Entertainer had been on Club Shay Shay. So all of these people had been there. Kevin Hart had been at different places talking, and about these things with the Breakfast Club, like I said, and different. There's been all of these drama over all of these years. So Katt Williams, who has never been one too shy to talk about things and had talked about things on different platforms, he knew that there wasn't going to be the same type of availability as this kind. Because he's not doing the Hollywood machine, he doesn't have to go and do tours and things like that in order to sell things. Let me explain. So when you're in the Hollywood machine, typically, if you have an album coming out, you do your late shows, right? You do your late shows, your talk shows, you do a performance at the Grammys, you do all of these different things to help promote the product that you're selling, okay? This is part of the Hollywood machine. This is part of the production and promotion machine. Just like if you're doing movies, you go to different cons and Sundance and all of these different things in order to promote it. You also do late show interviews and things like that, because at those things they're going to ask you, hey, you just did a movie. What's that about? And then you talk about it, and those things get millions of views at nighttime. And so then it's like, oh, good. Now people are aware of your movie. This is part of the machine. So when people say things like Beyonce retired, the reason why Beyonce made the statement that she retired is because she stopped having to do the machine. I don't have to go do a single tour for 4 different singles on my album and do performances at the late show and so on. And so I don't have to do all of that game. She just gets to release her music like she wants to. So then now that means I can just do it at my own leisure. I'm not part of the machine. I don't have to release it at certain times for it to be considered for a Grammy. I don't have to do it within these specific album release and single cycles and performance and tour cycles. It's not the same kind of journey. I get to just do what I want when I want to. Black Parade wasn't part of an album. Which is I could just do it. We're at a cultural moment and I want to put it out. I don't have to worry about, oh, I have to do specific music videos for my singles and not the other ones. I can just shoot a music video for every single song on my album. Make it a videography. Right? These are the type of things. So in the same sense, when Katt Williams is not part of that machine, he doesn't have to do that. So he mentions,
people know I don't go everywhere. I'm not interested in talking to people unless it's like a Larry King or somebody of an amazing ilk that I would actually want to go talk to in real life.
Okay.
I don't do it so I can sell product, and I got things to sell, so let me come talk.
This is really important for the Wanda Smith thing, which we'll come back to. So we're going to go through this interview and the things that Katt Williams was saying. I think it's really funny because at the very beginning of the interview, Shannon Sharpe mentions, hey, you're the top touring comedian. Then he pauses and says,
bro, you've been doing it. I mean, you're one of the top one of the top touring comedians of all time.
Because I think he's aware that there's going to be some people that are contest that and are going to say, no, Kevin Hart is. And you see Katt Williams stop with his drink because he realizes, you're struggling with this one. I don't think you believe it. So then Katt Williams begins going in immediately, like holding nothing back. There's a part where he mentions,
are you kidding me? You let Ricky Smiley sit here and you said out that mouth, you stole Friday After Next, the one I was in.
During Shannon Sharpe's interview with Ricky Smiley, Shannon Sharpe says to Ricky Smiley,
you stole the show in Friday After Next. Yeah.
Which to me is a shot at Katt Williams, because everyone knows the most memorable scene from Friday After Next, the most memorable character from Friday After Next was Money Mike. Without a doubt, he stole that movie. So this being Katt Williams' big break, in which he has one of the most iconic and memorable roles in a pretty successful franchise, for you to give that credit to Ricky Smiley is a bit of a disservice. And Katt Williams had to sit there and just hold that, like, okay, you're giving him this character. And then Ricky Smiley makes a claim.
And somebody said, no, we want you to play Mike.
The thieving ass Santa Claus.
Right, and then, because Katt Williams was going to be the Santa Claus.
Right.
And then, and they switched it over.
Right.
So now that Ricky Smiley has made those statements, Katt Williams is still holding that. This isn't the first time that he said that. Here's another example where he has said that.
Audition for the Money Mike part that Katt Williams played. And I think Katt Williams was supposed to play the Santa Claus. Is that?
So now he told people, and so Katt Williams is.
What he told everybody was, Katt Williams, and don't nobody know who he is. I'm on the radio. I'm with Steven Said. Everybody know me. That's what he told everybody that would listen to on the set.
This is where Katt Williams then takes a very cheap shot. He says,
and I don't know why he would lose a child and come on the air and start lying. That's why people believe in rituals right there.
And that's because Ricky Smiley had lost his son. Or Ricky Smiley had a child that had died kind of shortly before that interview. And I don't feel like that needed to have been mentioned. I think that was a low blow. I just don't see why that's important. It wasn't relevant. It just seems like a really, really bad cheap shot. Then he starts talking about the character, about Money Mike, and he's mentioning it.
I was audition number 201. 200 black comedians auditioned for the role of Money Mike with me. You're saying all 201 of us was auditioning and you had already had the role?
And so then he kind of goes on and said,
and had already shot the role in 4 days.
All that to say, when it comes to Katt Williams, a lot of people say he'll tell a joke, but he'll never tell a lie. And he does appear to come off as honest, but that doesn't mean that everything he's saying is correct. This is where he then goes on to his interview and he makes one of the statements that I believe is just not true. I can't say for sure, but it was fact checked. People keep saying nobody's ever fact checked Katt Williams. No one said that he's lying. And lie is a strong word, but I know people are saying that what he's saying ain't correct. So he says that
the truth of the matter is the Money Mike in the original script got raped in the bathroom.
Something that he objected to which he put this role on the line, and everything was important. He was homeless at the time. He was living within his trailer. He needed to get his teeth fixed because his 2 front teeth had been knocked out. That's a whole nother conversation. But long story short, he says that he risked that by standing up against this thing. Ice Cube later on addressed this interview and said,
far as, specific things, Katt was 100 on a few things. Most of what he was saying, a couple things, I just want to clarify. When we bring in a new, comedian, we do have them try out for different roles. So Ricky did give Money Mike a shot. But when we saw him and, we kind of saw how he moved and how he was, auditioning, we decided that he would be a better, Santa Claus, which was, to me, the perfect casting. When we saw Mike, damn, I call him Money Mike. When we saw Katt, when I saw him, I just knew that he was perfect for Money Mike.
But then he says specifically the
second thing I want to clear up, I would never shoot a rape scene in a movie, especially like Friday. We would listen to a certain extent, but we wasn't gonna change the movie for any actor. We do what we feel, and if it was a rape scene, it would have been in the movie. It was no reason not to shoot it. But that's not my style. I don't even like that kind of shit in movies.
Katt Williams was basically claiming that
Katt Williams had to take the risk in front of the studios. If you would allow me to allow us to do this movie without a black man getting raped in it, I promise you that it will be twice as funny as it would be with him getting raped.
He asked them to change it, and so then they rewrote whatever. That's a statement that I don't believe is true. I do believe that maybe they already had that written. I don't know for sure. I can't say who's right. This movie came out about 20 years ago, so we don't know who's telling the truth here. Maybe Ice Cube doesn't remember specifically. Because otherwise Katt Williams is like telling a whole bold-faced lie. I had to have a conversation with the studios. There's also a possibility that both of them are telling the truth. It's very possible that the script was the way it was, but you're always constantly evolving and writing a script as it's going along. And so then it also makes all of the sense in the world that that someone else had an extra page or something, or someone else had altered the script. The script is still a work in progress even as it's being shot. So it's very possible that someone had that scene in it with a scene. One of the writers was considering an idea similar to how what there was with like Dave Chappelle in the dress scene, where it was like, hey, this is the thing that we want you to do. And so he's like, I'm not doing it. And finally, hey, we got another, we'll just do this scene instead. A lot of time you have scenes, they changed the ending of the movie. Originally there was one ending and they had to go back and reshoot it, according to Ricky Smiley. That's what he said in his interview.
They shot all my stuff in 4 days. I went back to Birmingham. Came back out because they changed the ending. Did you know that?
Then Katt Williams says that
everything that Money Mike said, Katt Williams wrote.
I don't know that he wrote everything because the character already existed before he got there. But what he did say was that he was adding it on and freestyling a bunch of lines and it was comedy gold. And I've seen some of the behind the scene footage of Friday movies where, yeah, the characters are clearly coming up with stuff off of the spot and freestyle, and they laugh, oh, reshoot that again, and so on and so forth. Same thing happened in Grandma's Boy with Nick Swartzen. These kind of things happen all the time. And Ice Cube then goes on to confirm and say,
Katt, said he wrote his role, which, the role was written, but he enhanced it. This is why Katt was so dope in the movie. Money Mike had a small role, about as big as the Santa Claus role, but when we start filming, he was giving us such magic that we kept expanding his role and giving him more to do because he was on point.
So I don't believe everything that he said, and I don't know that he meant literally everything, but I think what he was basically saying was he did largely expand that role. So at this point, the idea that Ricky Smiley is telling people that he had that role is just wrong. Now, Katt Williams says because of that, because of the way that his character was, he was so egregious that he put in his contract that
I won't work with Ricky Smiley again unless he's in a dress. Now, what was Ricky Smiley's next movie? Was it First Sunday?
That's another statement that I don't believe is 100% true. You can't put in your contract, what contract? I'm only going to work with this guy if he wears a dress. That's not how movies are typically written. I don't believe that to be true. I don't. Again, it's possible I'm wrong. He said it's never been heard of in Hollywood in 100 years, and I don't think it has been heard of. But I don't know, so much of what he says has been true. I can't say 100% that it's wrong. It just doesn't sound believable to me. And if it is true, then at this point, Katt Williams, you're part of the problem. If you're talking about Hollywood making everybody wear a dress, and now here you are demanding that a black man wear a dress, I don't know, bro. This seems a little bit weird to me. Now he goes on and he starts talking about Cedric the Entertainer, and Cedric the Entertainer stealing his joke.
Katt say you stole one of his jokes.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. You know what I mean? It was like the idea of the joke that he was even talking about don't even match up with no timeline.
Internet always keeps receipts. TikTok and Twitter and everywhere else has posted these videos. Look for yourself. Look at this yourself. Katt Williams said, I shot my scene. I had done this joke on Comic View, and it was so successful that it was part of the commercials for Comic View. And so now at this point, that joke is doing numbers. Cedric the Entertainer comes up to him and congratulates him. And then later on in Kings of Comedy, he's doing the same joke. Now he says it's not the same joke. You look at it for yourself. If those aren't the same joke, I don't know what is. The only difference is you did a slightly different setup, but you basically said it's a spaceship. But you're doing the exact same joke. So Cedric is still saying nah, I didn't do that. These are totally different jokes. Everyone who's looking at this can see the opposite. This is clearly the same. Then because of that, the internet then comes up with the Bominicious joke. And it's very obvious that joke was clearly stolen, word for word.
Someone else has stolen some of your material?
Oh, that's a part of this business.
Right.
Now, so then Cedric the Entertainer is laid to rest, right? There's no debate about this. Cedric stole that joke. Next, he says Steve Harvey stole everything from Mark Curry. Mark Curry was Mr. Cooper, and he had a show hanging with Mr. Cooper, and he had obviously had a whole format to that show. Steve Harvey then does hit the Steve Harvey Show, which is basically hanging with Mr. Cooper too.
Same Steve that went to go watch Mark Curry do his whole sitcom and then stole everything Mark Curry had.
Oh yeah, you'll need this.
A whistle? Oh, Mark, I'm teaching music, not gym.
Standard issue. Screaming for help only excites the kids.
Steve got a sitcom where he the principal, and he wear a suit, and he...
First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mr. Hightower, and I'm your new music teacher.
It's hanging with Mr. Harvey. Hanging with Mr. Harvey. Man, he took some shots at Steve Harvey, and he mentioned that, the reason why Steve Harvey retired from stand-up.
Years later, I had, at one time, 7 TV shows running concurrent on the air.
Katt Williams is like, no, that's not why.
He stopped stand-up because he got in a comedy battle called the Championship of Stand-Up Comedy with one Katt Williams in Detroit in front of 10,000 people and lost because Katt Williams said he was actually bald and that was a wig. And I went in, and that's why he couldn't do stand-up anymore.
You see that nigga had to take off that lace front high top fade because he came out here to battle me out there. I played no motherfucking game, Steve.
So that's what he claims is the reason why he did, because he mentioned.
And then he gets this high top fade, making all black men think he got the best lineup in the business. And it's a man unit.
Which you go back and look at that footage and you can tell, you had he said he had a lace front, bro. Come on, man. Come on, man. So, he was dropping gems throughout this thing. He mentioned
the truth don't need motivation.
I thought that was a beautiful bar when he was just like, man, you try to say I'm saying this because I'm drunk. And it's like, no. The truth doesn't need motivation. I thought that was a bar. Then he says,
Cedric sitting here telling you why he ain't a movie star. He over here look like a walrus. You didn't say nothing. He can't even get his arms off his stomach sitting over here. Why I'm not a movie star.
Then he said,
you called Ocean 11 to get that nigga's part. What do you mean you didn't want to be a movie star? So on the behalf of Bernie, I would have to say what I have to say.
Because Bernie Mac had that role, and he said, Hollywood is competitive. I don't know that he wouldn't. Then he says,
he did 4 comedy specials. They're so bad, Shannon, they're not available on Netflix or Tubi. Can I say that again for the audience? They're so bad that they're not available on Netflix or Tubi.
Why did Tubi have to catch a stray shot there? So then, at this point, Shannon is like, man, you sound like you had a lot to get off your chest. And he says, another bar.
Winners are not allowed to allow losers to rewrite history.
That's a bar. So now he goes on to mention that these people are...
For 30 years, they're a group. These aren't 3 random guys.
It's so funny because when you listen to the interviews, Ricky Smiley says that. Listen to this clip and tell me if it seems like Ricky Smiley is validating exactly what he said.
Man, Steve. You
talk about Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey's like a big brother.
Okay.
And I used to open for Said. Said and
Right.
Eric Rohn, that was my first manager.
Right.
First person to take me on the road. So
Then he mentioned Earthquake is not in a movie because he can't read, like saying he's truly illiterate. Now he finally addresses the drug claim.
You fucked off promo shoots. You fucked off your promo fucking trips that they had set up for you. You became a risk to the studios, which is why the studios stopped fucking with you.
Why was he a risk?
He chose drugs.
Oh, okay.
Take responsibility.
Because, people have been saying for years he's on drugs. I remember thinking it myself. There was a scene, which is going to come up later on, but there was a thing where he got into, it seemed like a fight with a young kid. And I don't know how that kid's parents didn't press charges because this man clearly does have money. That's really weird. I almost felt like it was staged. I don't know. But it seemed like he took an L to like a 13-year-old. I don't know the story behind that. We were like, yo, this dude is down bad. Everybody that saw that had to think it's either drugs. It's likely drugs or some sort of psychosis. And this dude is down bad. He has mental health issues. We don't know. But we've been on the other end of it. We've seen them accuse people of mental health issues like Dave Chappelle and people being on drugs, Martin Lawrence, and things like that when that might not necessarily be the case. So we just don't know. Like truly, whether what exactly is happening with some of these things. It just seems like these claims can't be 100% true. We don't know the veracity of these claims, but we know that they've been levied. So now at this point, he asks,
Katt's on drugs. Where are the stories? Why is there no story of anybody who ever sold a drug to me, did a drug with me, was around me when I was inebriated?
He takes a shot at Faison Love and he says,
anybody that ever told you differently was a fat Faison liar.
That line was funny to me because it just seemed like out of nowhere. Shannon Sharp even said,
Faison just called a stray.
When I was reviewing this on my stream, somebody said, that's not a stray. I went and looked and it isn't a stray. Him and Faison have had some beef online, and Faison has obviously gone on his Instagram and has been posting pictures taking massive L's. Look at his Instagram posts. See, here he is. He's posting a picture of him with the kid. This is that scene that I was talking about. Then he posts a picture of his Groupon sales. But then people in the comments are like, wait, bro, I can get Kevin Hart tickets on Groupon. Like, that's a common industry practice. But more importantly, where are your specials? Then he mentions...
Faison said that getting a Netflix special is easy. I have 12 specials. Guess how many Faison got? 0.
And that's facts. And of course, so people are in his Instagram mentions... mentioning that. And it feels like during this time that Shannon Sharp is starting to do the wingman tactic. When I describe that, it's this. A lot of times when you're doing comedy, if someone is saying something that's irreverent or not proper, what you do is you have one character written into the show that will be able to say things that they're not supposed, that will be able to correct the narrative so that the crazy character can say whatever they want. So it doesn't seem like the show is endorsing whatever the crazy character is saying. A perfect example of this is something like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. If you watch that show, during the very first few episodes, the character Sweet D is only always in there telling the guys, hey, this is a bad idea, whatever you guys are doing. Like, no, you guys, are you sure? Like, and she's always like the voice of reason so that the other 3 characters can be as crazy as they want to and the show doesn't get a bad rep for just promoting irreverence, right? But eventually they just let it go and it's like, no, all 4 of these characters are narcissists and it's crazy as frig. It's one of my favorite comedies. All that to say, Shannon Sharp is doing that thing where I'm letting you say whatever you got to say. And I'm like, man, come on now. Hold up, though. Wait a minute.
But I don't disagree. I don't dislike all the Cowboys. Katt, oh, man, come on.
I'm saying these things, but in reality, it's like, yeah, keep going. Say whatever you want. And that's how it feels like he's doing. He's wingmanning. As long as I say, man, come on, man, then now I'm not endorsing it. But I'm definitely not doing anything to stop you from saying it, right? The thing is with these things, I don't think he's the progenitor of these statements. I think that what ends up happening is for some of these things, these are things that have been talked about in just, gossip channels and just on the internet and stuff like that. People have connected these dots. And he's seen it himself, and he's just kind of saying these things as well. I don't know that he came up with this. Like, even like the dress thing, that's not his. Dave Chappelle was one of the first comedians to make that statement and bring that to the main conversation on Oprah, of all places. But anyway, here's a picture that clearly it looks like what he's saying. You're describing it. I don't know why he had to say their wives had weird faces.
If you sign up for their program, you get a light-skinned, weird face wife that never do an interview.
Oh, man, come on.
Listen, in 20 years won't do an interview. Nobody's ever talked to her, and she's never been interviewed anywhere. And now, understand, I'm not talking about one person. What I just told you applies to 7 people. How they all end up with that. That's part of what you get.
But it is what it is. Then someone mentions about jealousy, and he says what I think is another dig, but also a beautiful bar. Listen, you got to hear him deliver it. Listen to this.
I can't be jealous. I've never seen them have anything that I ever wanted.
And he starts saying about how he's pretty much independent. He's done what he wants to do. He mentioned when I spoke about Michael Jackson, they tried to cancel.
Wow, Michael Jackson is freed in a motherfucker smelling like little boys' booty holes, and I'm supposed to be excited. Fuck Mike.
And to be honest with you, I wholly disagree with him on his Michael Jackson take. That's another conversation for another video. The Michael Jackson thing is one of the disgusting things about Hollywood that I just can't respect. The fact that he still is catching these L's posthumously despite all of the evidence. But again, that's another video. We'll get into that on a different day. Remind me, we'll talk about that. Here's another thing that Katt Williams did that I don't agree with. Listen to this.
All of these big dick deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is.
I don't know what that nigga was on there. What are you talking? What's happening? Why would you say that? Why are you talking about these my brain can't. That's pause, unequivocally pause. What are you talking about, bro? Why would you say that? But then I think really what's at the core of a lot of this is where he mentioned.
Because in 30 years, I've done nothing but collect information, knowledge, and your secrets.
It reminds me of that character Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, where it's like, the whole thing is about, we're not playing in power, like direct power, we're playing in secrets and information. Subtlety. That's how Katt Williams has played the game in a lot of ways. I don't have to get into the inner circle. I just got to orbit the inner circles. And as I'm orbiting it, I will pick up enough information to where now I become powerful. And when you say, well, how is he powerful if he's not inside of these inner circles? Well, when I can do an interview and in 5 days, this interview can become the second largest interview of all time. I don't know. At this point, the only interview that has more views is one hosted by Joe Rogan. He surpassed the other one that was hosted by Joe that had 32 million views, which was with Elon Musk. Shannon Sharpe has now hosted the second largest interview in the world, and I believe it will go on to be number 1. It surpassed the second largest, which had done those numbers in about 3 years, 9 months. It did that in 5 days. Now he goes on and he starts talking about how he shaped Money Mike.
Because I wrote the words for Money Mike. I designed the hair for Money Mike. I collaborated with the wardrobe department and made outfits to make sure that no one in America would be wearing what Money Mike was wearing. I told them to go get the Prowler. I then told them to paint it purple. I told them don't have an actor as playing a pimp. We could get an actual pimp, Archbishop Magic Don Juan, to play.
Which Ice Cube definitely corroborated.
He wrote a lot of his part because, like I said, he was giving us jewels, so we were keeping the camera rolling. He was coming off the dome. He was coming prepared every day to steal the show. That was his mission.
We got to give him his credit. When he's talking about, hey, I write and I do this and I believe that. There were other interviews where Ice Cube came forward and said, yeah, man, he showed up on the set and he outworked pretty much everyone there. That dude was dedicated. He was hungry. Why he made that character pop the way he did. And he did so with writing as well as performing. Then he starts talking about Steve Harvey. And during this time, it's important to note that he was homeless. He was living on the set. Like, he didn't know where he was going to go. You know, he just had a son. And so he's like, yeah, I was on the set, you know, trying to make this thing happen. This is all the money I was going to be having. This is how much it was going to cost to fix my teeth. Because he also had, I think, a tumor in his mouth. So it was like, with all the surgery and everything he was going to need, he was going to have that because he didn't have health insurance. So he just had to come up with his money. Friday after next was going to be his path to do that. After he paid for that, then he's like, yeah, now I can go in and continue to do what I got to do. If you notice the Money Mike character, you can't see it. He basically hides those with his mouth as he's talking. Now, with all that being said, he says, as far as Steve Harvey is stealing his story. He was never homeless.
This is like Steve Harvey telling people he used to be homeless. That's my story. That's not his story. Steve Harvey wasn't never homeless.
This doesn't add up. I'm fact checking here.
Every time I gave him a joke, so I was making an extra $40 a week.
Right.
You know, I'm going like, it's 1980, man.
He said 25 years ago that he was doing tours and so on and so forth. You know how much time it takes to go 25 years ago from today? In 1984, it's like 16 years. Do you know how much can change in 16 years? When you're still trying to make it? I can't say that Steve was never homeless. And if your argument for why he was never homeless was something 25 years ago, how do we know that Steve wasn't homeless 30 years ago, 35 when he first started? At the beginning of comedy, it's not well paying. And if you're going to go out on that limbs, a lot of people have had that story, just like Tiffany Haddish did, right? So just like you did. You were homeless for different reasons. That was before you were doing comedy and things like that. But still, actually, even after you were doing comedy, you had those situations. So I don't know that we can say that that's not true. I don't know where he would be saying that. I can get him maybe feeling like, I think when you have that much bias against someone like Steve Harvey, that's why he's saying. Now, he says,
Guy Torrey did a beautiful special about the Comedy Store and Fat Tuesday, where he said that Steve and Cedric and Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish came through there and made... All lies. Steve and Cedric never performed at the Comedy Store at all. Tiffany was only seen at the Laugh Factory.
But when you look on the Comedy Store's website, here are their receipts for all of their paid regulars. And on there, those names, Cedric the Entertainer and Steve Harvey, are there. See for yourself. So here we have it. Yes, they were there. Yeah, they did perform there. I don't know what you mean they never performed there. I don't know where he gets that statement from. That seems like that's just not true. Again, the vast majority of what he's saying is true. It doesn't seem like he's intentionally lying, but this statement is just certifiably false. These are where things start taking a dark turn, where, you know, you start feeling like, man, you crossing some boundaries, but fortunately this one's in prison. But where he says,
are you not afraid about being blackballed again?
They canceled me for talking about Harvey Weinstein before the thing came out, but he offered to suck my penis in front of all my people at my agency. What am I supposed to do? He did all of that. I'm thinking I'm the only black person on the script. I get there, there's 3 other black guys on there. Woo. Huh.
So you wonder what they did to get there.
I told him no. What y'all do?
A big overarching theme within this interview was about the idea about what some people have called buck breaking. I've talked about that before. But what basically seems to be this idea that in Hollywood, that a lot of time there are attempts to emasculate black men or kind of force homosexual acts on them and things like that. Of course, this is something that was claimed by Terry Crews. He was sitting there and he was giving his details in court about a man literally grabbing his penis at a party in front of everyone, a high, very powerful Hollywood executive, and him feeling powerless in that moment. He's literally in tears and you got people laughing at him and making fun of him. That theory has been there. That seems akin to the idea that what Dave Chappelle was saying about wearing a dress and how he was unwilling to do so and how they were almost trying to force you to do so. How almost every single powerful black man, black comedian, they force into dresses. Not that it never happens to any white ones, but that this is a claim that people have been making about the emasculation of black men within Hollywood. Kevin Hart was very well aware of these claims because someone directly asked him in an interview.
On Saturday Night Live, you know, it was a choice that I made. So I think it's all about your pick of what's funny to you and what you feel will be funny to others. And I will say that's the knowledge that I now have and understand. But from the outside looking in, you always go, I ain't gonna do it. Ain't no way. Why? Why I gotta do it? I ain't gonna compromise myself. For what? I am who I am. But then you're in a movie, and then it calls for a funny scene. Hey, what if you went in this way? And if it's actually funny, it's funny.
Dave Chappelle's claimed, and he made this stuff about, man, you got to have your boundaries and so on and so forth. I haven't been asked, but, I got my boundaries and so on and so forth. Then in SNL, he gets offered the dress and he wears the dress. But you knew about these claims. So you can't say you did so in ignorance. You can't say that you were just completely uninformed. But sometimes being willing to play the game is how you get to greater levels of success. And you might feel like wearing the dress isn't that important. Now, kissing rock in the mouth, that might be a whole nother thing. The internet came forward with those receipts, or some scene where it seemed like Shaq was bending him over a car, and it was just absurd, the collection of stuff that has happened. Now, again, maybe Kevin Hart just feels like these things are funny. I don't know. But it just seems like this is what Katt Williams had a big theme about, the idea, the things that are required in order to be successful. And so when you start talking about these things, these are some of the things he echoed in his conspiracy tour. And it sounds like, yeah, there has been these sort of stuff does exist. We now know Harvey Weinstein actually was doing these things. We knew he was doing it to women. Then you had your Richard Pryor making a statement about, sucked the penis before. And then he mentioned when he banged his first man, but he used, different choices of words right in front of Paul Mooney. And he said these things. And so then, there were people that in his biography that mentioned that he had sex with Marlon Brando and all these kinds of things. So that stuff has been around in Hollywood. And you had Eddie Murphy, and they were talking about how he picked up a trans. So you have all of these stories that are happening where people are making these claims. So it starts getting kind of real. You know what I mean? And so Katt Williams, having seen all this stuff, and these stories have been in Hollywood forever. So this is a big overarching theme. So he says,
they pay you to not talk about things they don't want you to talk about.
Sorry to take this back to Monique one more time, but when Monique was getting canceled by Lee Daniels and Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry, and she went on the Steve Harvey show, Steve Harvey admitted to this. Listen to him say that he sold out his integrity and why he wasn't able to support her publicly. Monique makes it abundantly clear this.
And I gotta put my brother Steve on the list. Y'all knew I was not wrong. Each one of you said to me, Monique, you're not wrong. And when I heard you go on the air and you said, my sister done burnt too many bridges, and there's nothing I can do for her now. Steve, do you know how hurt I was?
This is what she's saying. Here he is saying,
We out here in a game. This the money game. This ain't the black man's game. This ain't the white man's game. This the money game.
She says, what about the integrity game? And he said,
Before the money game, it's called the integrity game. And we've lost the integrity worrying about the money.
But Mo,
and wait a minute.
If I crumble, my children crumble, my grandchildren crumble. I cannot, for the sake of my integrity, stand up here and let everybody that's counting on me crumble so I can make a statement.
He's saying he sold his integrity for the bag. He said it. Listen for yourself. I lost all respect for Steve Harvey at that moment. That's him saying he's paid to not talk about what he can't talk about. The interesting part is, and this is the last thing I'll try to say about this so we can get back on topic, he lost his show over that interview. Because one of the things that he cut out of that interview was him talking about, he said, man, if them white boys had came to me and told me, I would have said them, so on and so forth. And he mentioned white boys a few times. He edited it out of what was aired. But of course, that stuff is still there in pre-production. So now some of the studio heads and people saw that and then decided to take his show from him. So you sacrificed your integrity for the bag, and then he took the bag from you. I can't feel bad for him. And it was Steve Harvey who Katt Williams said,
you called Ocean 11 to get that nigga's part. What do you mean you didn't want to be a movie star?
This is another really funny part where they mentioned,
have you ever been on tour with any of these guys?
Every guy I mentioned to you is not funny out there in real life.
All the comedians I bring with me, I think, are funnier. That's him being humble. Same Kevin Hart bag. I know Katt Williams knows that none of the comedians on tour with him are funnier than him. I know he knows that. It's the humility. It's a humility cloak. I respect it. They go into Cedric, and Cedric's the entertainer.
Well, you and Katt, Katt say you stole one of his jokes.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. You know what I mean? It was like the idea of the joke that he was even talking about don't even match up with no timelines.
Now when they're talking about Cedric Entertainer stealing the joke again, and he mentioned,
I had Cedric on here, and I asked him about the joke stealing, and he said the timeline doesn't add up.
Correct.
To that point, you say.
Now, Katt Williams very clearly details.
Right. So he thought that I was just a no-name comedian and that he could take this joke and nobody would know.
Right.
The issue was that I had already done this particular joke on BET's Comic View twice.
Right.
It had done so well on BET's Comic View that they had made it part of the commercial. So part of the commercial of make sure you tune in to BET was you seeing me doing this joke.
The internet found the receipts for it. Look, now he says,
Mark Curry had already helped me work on this joke because I thought it was good because I was getting a standing ovation on it. He had me go back in the lab and help me craft it to be an even more powerful joke.
And I think it's really crazy because they always talk about how Katt Williams is a hater, but he ain't hating on Mark Curry. He mentioned positive comedians. Then he mentions how he did that joke at the Comedy Store.
I'm doing this joke. It's on Comic View. Cedric comes to the Comedy Store. He watches me in the audience. He comes backstage. He tells me what a great job I did and how much he loves the joke.
The reason why I say this is a validated claim is because Cedric the Entertainer didn't go and say, hey, I didn't do his joke. What he says was, these are different jokes. He doesn't say that I didn't see him do that joke. He's not saying that Katt Williams didn't do that joke. He's just saying,
look, I have no idea what this brother is talking about. That joke is over 30 years old, close to 30-something years old. I did the Kings of Comedy in 1999. Probably have been doing that joke 6-7 years before that. I don't even know if Katt was doing comedy then. So, again, he's a talented brother. I have no idea what he's talking about. I've never seen Katt do a space shuttle joke,
So you did see his joke. You did see him do the joke, and we all can see that that's the same joke. It's just be like if I was to do the exact same joke, I'm not a comedian, but if I was to do the exact same joke and I said, oh, yeah, instead, just imagine us being in heaven and, now we out there and we on clouds, and while we on these clouds, and I do the exact same joke and play some music. We're flying cloud. I'm driving my cumulonimbus cloud, and I do the exact same joke. It's the same thing, bro. You can't change the vehicle and now it's an entirely different joke. What are we talking about? Freak out of here. Then Katt Williams mentioned,
him and Steve had already apologized for me, so I gave him a pass for a decade.
Him nor Steve denied that they ever apologized to him. Now, I've shared my own previous stories in different videos about apologies in secret. I don't trust that. If you do something to me in public, I want it in public. I want that apology in public. Your apology should be as loud or louder than the offense that was given. Always. Because people will remember the offense, but not remember the apology. You can't offend me in public and then come back behind and be like, man, my bad. No. Because then what will end up happening is if I ever make a claim to someone else when they bring that up to me about, hey, this is what it was. Now I'm gonna have to now I gotta sit there and try to re-explain to them. No, he apologized. He was in the wrong for that. And when that happens, you'll find those people that were apologizing in secret will then double down. No, I didn't apologize. I wasn't saying I was wrong. It was just more that we had a different understanding. And now they walk back that apology. I'm not having that. Then they go into some other stuff.
You talked to me that you got accepted to college at 7 years of age. You could read fluently at 3 years of age.
I don't know if we can verify that. He starts talking to him about his life. And a lot of these claims are where people felt like there were untruths about this. Somebody who I respect pretty greatly, he was watching, he was like, yo, this dude saying that he had this, whatever, to college at this age, or he was able to, and all of these kinds of things. Now, I don't know for sure what Katt Williams' IQ is. And a lot of times we think of geniuses as these people in specific functions. But in reality, a lot of times they look and act like regular people. And you don't know how intelligent this man is. Have him take an IQ test. That would be one way of doing so. But you would be surprised. What that is capitalization. Just because a person is a genius doesn't mean that they're going to be as successful. Because a lot of times there's early childhood burnout. There's all of these different, you need the proper support in order to capitalize on it. And if this dude moved out at 13 years old, which he's making the claim that he emancipated himself from his parents at 13 years old, then I don't know, that could be true. During this point of the interview is where Katt Williams gets really, you can tell he's incredibly emotional about all of those stories, his family and his father.
Especially if what you're saying is wrong. I can't condone wrong. And if I find out that something is wrong and I tell you it's wrong and you don't back me,
at first I was getting frustrated, like, oh, you've been so transparent all this time and now you can't talk. And then I realized, oh, this is the me thing. He's dealing with emotions. Emotions don't lend themselves to the same facility when it comes to articulation. When I'm expressing myself, like when I'm doing a video, it's so easy to talk. I did therapy with my ex-fiance, and I remember I'd recorded it. And when I watched it back, I realized how much I was struggling to communicate to the therapist. And I realized, man, this is a different field. I consider myself to be a very articulate person. Almost this entire video is extemporaneous. Talking about emotions, it gets so much more complex. It's not like you can just logically delineate everything. Now there's these gray areas. You have mixed feelings, and now you're also trying to protect people, so you just can't be as straightforward as you want to be. Because it's like, I want to just say this person did me wrong, but it's like, oh, I don't want to speak irreverently about my dad. So now you're in these mixed things, and so this is where I think the interview is where he's the least articulate about any of the things and the least definite about any of these subjects.
It wasn't a conversation. It was an altercation. In the altercation, I love my father loved me, but we are two men at it. I'm not being challenged, I'm being beat to death.
Oh, he was abusive.
I didn't say that. I said we were in an altercation. I in no way gave you the impression that I won anything. I'm the one leaving. I'm out of bounds. This is his house.
Right.
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses that's a cult. As a person who had a cult-like background, that's a cult. And when you're dealing with that kind of stuff, the excommunication and stuff that happens over those things is really gross.
Don't try to disfellowship me for sexual acts and I'm a virgin. Sorry, God don't make mistakes. You don't get 2 times to fuck me over.
I don't know that I've ever mentioned this in video, but myself, I remember being a grown man, over 25 years of age, having a breakdown because my mother discovered that I was sexually active. When you're in these kind of environments, and a lot of it ends up being self-imposed, my end, because I think my mother and we spoke about that rather recently, and she was explaining, I just didn't understand why you still thought that I thought of you that way. And I didn't know why I don't know why, I just assumed, because I kind of carried myself in a certain way on purpose. I was dang near living a double life in that regard. I'm the youngest of 7. I have 4 older brothers. My mother mentioned one day that she had put something in one of somebody's drawer, and upon opening the drawer, she saw a box of condoms and said, okay, well, at least they're being safe. You know, people get older and she realized I can't make my children abstinent, right? But I didn't know this, and I just knew Mom expects us to be good Christian children. That sort of thing, when you're in that kind of environment, living with those kind of, it does affect you in a different way. Jehovah's Witnesses is a totally different level. I mean, it's insane. The reason why all of this stuff becomes important is because what he details here is why he never did drugs.
And to see that these were lawyers and doctors and teachers, and that these people were white and black and Asian and Indian, and the only thing that all of these homeless people had in common was they made a bad decision and aligned themselves with drugs. And I interviewed them all. What drug? What? And guess what, Shannon? What? Nobody had a great story. Nobody had a great story of what meth had done for them, what crack had done for them, what cocaine had done for them, what heroin had done for them, what speed had done for them. Nobody had them stories. Everybody's story was, I had my life together. And then I decided to do this dumb thing. And I lost my wife, I lost my house, I lost my cars, I lost my reputation, and I'm now out here sucking penis in the woods. What? Talk about scared straight.
And of course, there is no proof that he's ever done drugs. And he mentioned in another interview, or mentioned in another video.
The reason I don't do cocaine, Big Tigger, is because I had a tumor in my upper jaw and they had to take it out, and they had to block the whole right of my sinus with a piece of metal. So ever since I got out the Marine Corps, I can only breathe out of one nostril, boy. I get my blood tested every 3 months for the last 15 years. All narcotic tests have come up 0.00%. I'm 44 years old, little Tigger. You look up my rap sheet. I have never had a DUI or a possession of anything, not even the marijuana I do every day. See, when you real, you can tell the truth about anything or anybody.
So it seems to me like this is just an assumption. But let's use Katt Williams' words on himself. You see, in that rant, which I disagree with largely, despite certain parts of it being freaking hilarious, what does he say?
If a motherfucker call you a crackhead for 20 years, bitch, you are smoking crack.
These are his words. This is why you can't judge people based off of accusations. And what does the scripture say? Judge not lest ye be judged. Remove the beam from your own eye so you can see clearly to help your brother. I mean, you're making this claim that if these accusations have been for this long, then it must be true. But it's not true in your case, is it? And if it's not true in your case, then how can you simply say, therefore Michael Jackson is guilty? How do you throw this black man under the bus?
No, I'm supposed to be happy because he used to be black.
These were your words. How do you justify that with all of these accusations? Give it time and you'll have 20 years of people accusing you of being on drugs. And according to you, you say you haven't done drugs. I don't think accusations are enough. He does mention a bunch of comedians positively.
I like Chappelle. I like Patrice O'Neal. Like, I like the greats of comedy because I do. Like, I like Ron White. I like Bill Engvall. Like, I know comics. Like, people that did the craft, they raised me. I was touring with Steve Marmel and Richard Jenny and real journeymen.
It sounds like he just has issues with the few people who he feels like robbed jokes and stole jokes. And we now have evidence that Steve Harvey stole Mark Curry's joke. Mark Curry had made the claim previously in another interview. This is echoed by him. We have receipts.
Oh yeah, you'll need this.
A whistle? Mark, I'm teaching music, not gym.
Standard issue. Screaming for help only excites the kids.
First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mr. Hightower, and I'm your new music teacher.
When he starts talking about enemies, he's like,
and all my enemies all look the same in the eyes, whether it's Faison, Wanda, Aries, Spears.
Now we get the context because I didn't understand fully why. He gives explanation for why he went on Wanda Smith the way he did.
It was the fact that before I go in there, she has a conversation about, okay, now, I just want to talk to you because you just won an Emmy for the city of Atlanta, and this is in Atlanta, and they just want to hear about the Emmy and hear from you and to thank you for what you did putting the city on.
Right. Got an Emmy for that role. That was a show, Atlanta. And so because Wanda Smith's radio show was in Atlanta.
And we won't talk about your kids. We won't talk about jail, no cases. We ain't gonna talk about none of that.
He gets on the show. She never mentions the Emmy once and instead starts talking about your kids. And
that's dope.
You cook? Do you cook for your kids?
Absolutely.
Tell me some of the things you cook that they're proud of. Like, Dad made some. You got the best spaghetti. You got the best steak. What do you have? Tell us what you cook.
As a father of 7 with an unlimited food budget, you can make whatever is necessary.
I
with
said
7,
what they like.
Excuse me.
I said what do they like?
Just because you're a poor interviewer doesn't mean.
I said you answer the question. You're good at telling us about what's going on in jail. And hurry up and get to the salon. All right, it's the People Station Viewer 3. Your hair is kind of. And you're big
Turn
in
it
prison.
down.
And you're
yes,
big in prison.
I've never been to prison.
You have
19 felonies,
times.
no convictions.
Yeah,
Knock it off. Prison and jail aren't the same. No.
So now he feels attacked. And she took smallest of jabs, which I didn't think were appropriate. But if you brought me on here to talk about an Emmy, never mention the Emmy, and instead talk about the very thing that you said you weren't going to talk about, I feel some type of way. And what I do is drag people because I'm a comedian. Now we get the context for it. Was it still bullying to some degree? I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't feel so passionately about it now as I did before I saw this explanation. And again, I don't know for sure if that's true. If it's true, then that makes sense why he would do that. And it almost kind of lines up because as he said,
all the comedians have to come do these radio stations because you have to sell your tickets. And so that means you have to go to the radio station.
Yes.
I don't go to the radio station and I don't make posts to sell tickets. I just don't.
And so if that's the case, and I went on this show because we were going to talk about this Emmy and the importance of Black success and expanding opportunities. And he really wanted to give big ups to Donald Glover, who is a fellow comedian who he also respects and finds to be quite funny. If all of those things are the reason why I'm doing this, and instead you do that to me, yeah, I feel some type of way. Catch this work. Then he mentions
they tried to kill me this same weekend, not in jokes, with a real gun in my real face on real camera. Understand I'm losing my life for participating in something that goes along with my job. Like, it's 2 comedians. What do you mean?
Of course, I don't know. I got to probably do a little bit more research into that. He mentions that.
And Gaza Strip it. That's non-political. I'm saying if you do it, you let a terrorist accidentally touch over here.
And I won't stop burning you down until there ain't nothing left. It'll literally be rubble on top of rubble, and I'll still be bombing.
And this is another thing that I very much disagree with. I don't think making fun of that assault on those people or using that as an example was probably the appropriate thing. We're talking about people who are being bombed. God knows how many innocent civilians have died in this situation. This isn't a Palestine-Israel conflict conversation. That's not what this is. But what we can say factually, not trying to take a side in any capacity, there have been a great number of innocent civilians who are in no way, shape, or form related or associated to Hamas who have died in that conflict in Gaza. So to say, "I'll Gaza strip it," I think that's a little bit far. But it's not my fight. You say what you say. You chose the analogy you did. I get the point that you were making. Another shot he takes, which I believe is OD.
I can't even imagine the misery of these bums.
He started talking again about how he crafted Money Mike, because that's been an important thing. Because again, when people are trying to take that role from you or trying to say that you didn't do it appropriately or that you didn't develop it, you want to clear that up. And he clearly did. And so here he goes ahead and he says,
the first thing I do is erase me from it.
Okay.
So anything that I would naturally do, that's what I'm not going to do because I'm playing a different character.
Playing the character. Okay.
Right. So I then create this person based upon real life circumstances. So I don't have to wonder what a pimp thinks because I've been in that position for a little while. Adding those levels to acting is what all actors do if they're not Steve or Cedric or Ricky.
Bro, he was on their heads. The whole time he never stopped taking shots at those three. It was wild. I think what has been deemed the funniest line or favorite line of almost everyone that watched the special is this. So when Shannon Sharp is doing his due diligence and defending, Faison Love, he's not part of their beef. And I think he has a relationship with some of these people. He's like,
let Big Worm breathe.
That's when Katt Williams says,
"Stall him out now."
You having an unnatural allegiance to losers is not like you.
The way he paused before he delivered that line in the first place was too much. That's a bar, okay? This is where it gets real good because he asks him,
if what you're saying is correct, why wasn't he in next Friday or Friday after next?
I mean, his role,
it wasn't good.
It wasn't good. Because he's been so kind of even toned this whole time, and the way he just interjected, he wasn't good. Kills me. That's my probable top 3 favorite lines in the way he delivered it. Now, look, here's where it goes. Because listen, there was a point where people were saying, look, he had to have had drug usage. It was crazy. They were doing that because, look at his 2 front teeth. And I do know people who have done meth or different drugs who have lost their 2 front teeth because of it. That is a common thing that happens because some drugs weaken your teeth. Any kind of pressure, anything like that will make them fall out or crack or chip, like almost to the gum line. Here, he explains how he broke his 2 front teeth.
5 months prior to me getting this first audition for Friday After Next, I got this baby son. I'm holding him up above me. He grabs my little chain. He's playing with it, and he accidentally drops it. It breaks out my front 2 teeth.
I myself had an experience. I remember we had drank like a hot drink, and then I was drinking a Capri Sun afterwards. And I learned that if you do hot and cold, it weakens things very greatly, specifically your teeth. And I just had a sucker. And I remember just like eating this sucker and then like hitting it against my teeth and they chipped. Then I had to go to the dentist and they had to like fill in those chips in my teeth. That happened to me. Mistakes can happen. And then even worse, in 2007, you can find old interviews of me when I was in the fighting game community. Missing, I had this big chunk missing in my 2 front teeth. And I used to talk covering my mouth like this without moving lips because I was so embarrassed about my teeth because I had this big old chip in my teeth. The way I fixed my teeth is I ended up doing that $50,000 money match with Tone in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in 2010. Using some of the money from that, I financed my very first album. I went to a dentist and paid for them to fix my teeth out of pocket because I had no health insurance, no dental insurance. That's how I paid for my teeth to get fixed. My teeth were bad. Just though that chip, I was swimming in a swimming pool. I hit the bottom of the thing, my teeth chipped, and it was just like that. I remember in the beginning, it was like there was all of this pain from just breathing, from the air touching the nerve. Then eventually that went away. But no matter what, the teeth were they weren't coming back. I mean, it wasn't going to grow back. I had to get it fixed. So in the same sense, he talks about this story.
I'm in a situation now where when I go to the dentist, they telling me this gonna cost thousands and thousands of dollars to fix this right. They not telling me what it's gonna look like. I go get an estimate with no money involved, find out what I need to do. They find out you got a tumor in your upper jaw, so we're gonna have to do a whole surgery for you. It's gonna be 100 bands. I don't have it.
Not unheard of. If that story is true, and he could just be an elaborate liar, or that's how he lost his teeth. But some people would just say, no, it was just drugs, with no evidence. Now he goes back in on Ricky Smiley.
The dude said the entire time we were filming, I can't play this role. They got a bandana over my nose and my mouth. My family not even gonna know who this is.
Which I believe that. I think another important line is when he starts talking about.
For a 5-year period, every single movie that Kevin Hart did was a movie that had been on my desk, that all I had said was, just, can we take some of this step and fetch it shit out? And then I can do it. Like, it don't need to be overtly homosexual, because I'm not homosexual, right? It doesn't need that to be funny, right?
Again, this is part of his overarching theme about the Hollywood, like turning out people and making people gay within these. Another receipt that was kept when he mentioned, because the other people were saying Ice Cube wasn't paying in his films, and he speaks up for Ice Cube.
What you mean, the independent black dude who's filming it partly out of his fucking pocket? What you mean he didn't pay you enough? They weirdo.
Not that he didn't have a fan base. He had already been doing comedy, but like the world at large didn't know him. Local people in his, like where he had toured mostly with him, and people who go to comedy shows, but the world at large didn't know him. Katt, without a doubt, that movie like catapulted him to a different level of success, which he earned, 1, by doing the stand-up beforehand, 2, by auditioning and getting the part, 3, by expanding the role by being the genius that he was comedically on that set. He's saying, just like I wasn't paid like a great amount, if I got like around $100,000 or so, I think that's what it was.
Well, I made enough to get them teeth fixed just like you did.
Yeah.
So it was no harm, no foul. I knew that I was gonna go from there, and there was no
turning back for Katt Williams.
When you mention those kinds of things, then it's like it makes sense. Now, if other comedians want to say, yeah, I wasn't paid that much, and it's like, well, yeah, but were you a big draw? This was an opportunity for you. This wasn't about you getting paid crazy amount on a shoestring budget movie. This wasn't like produced by, big Hollywood in the same way. But if you were such a small actor at this time and you were having a small role, and Money Mike was a very small role that he expanded dramatically. So maybe he should have got paid a little bit more considering how much the character was expanded. But if I'm just grateful for the opportunity and you guys are expanding my part and not cutting it out like they did to all of Ricky Smiley's parts by his own admission, yeah, I think I'm getting paid appropriately. That's that. This was also corroborated by Ice Cube. Ice Cube came on there and said,
a lot of people are talking about pay and how much they was paid on these movies that were extremely low budget. Most of these guys work a couple of days, and when you're doing a movie, there's over 100 people working on the movie that need to get paid. Most of them got to get paid every day. And there's pre-production and post-production. Even after you finish with the actors, you got to pay editors and sound people. And my movies are all about quality. So most of the money go up on the screen. I'm not giving you no bullshit. I'm not giving you no low budget, shit you can laugh at because it's so cheap. So, we try to put all the money on the screen. And so any actor that's mad at what they got paid, just look at what you was doing. Look at where your career was at the time. Take a look at where it is now.
Then when they start talking about the next Friday, and he's like, yeah, man, like...
Cube already asked me to write it. I was supposed to have been writing it. This is what these guys are mad about.
They mentioned different people coming on. This is where he says another thing that I disagree with.
The Chris Tucker that we got now is Epstein Island Chris Tucker.
And I don't think that that's fair. Chris Tucker was asked about going to Epstein Island, and he says point blank, no, I never went to the island. We had a benefit that we were doing that was for charity, for children. It was in Africa. And we flew on that plane to go to Africa. And I think when people look at flight logs and then try to determine that somebody was doing something horrible to children. I just don't think that's so spurious. I don't even know where to go. Because you have to realize that when you're dealing with people in that elite circle, like very frequently there's going to be mixing in things where it's like, okay, hey, we're doing this benefit, we're flying this way on so-and-so's private jet, and you're like, okay, we're all doing this together and I'm in this circle. I'm not about to be like, well, I don't know this guy and I'm not flying on his jet. I haven't done my research exactly on who this person is and what he offers. So I'm not. No, I'm on the elite circles, and it's just like, okay, yeah, this is your plane that we're doing to go do something for children in Africa. I'm on board. Now, if later on it's determined that this guy is some psycho that has an island with children that are being harmed, I don't know how you can. That's yeah. Look at his response yourself.
Well, that was a humanitarian trip to Africa. And I met him on that trip because it was his plane. I didn't know who plane we was getting on, but it was a whole bunch of dignitary people. We was with a delegation. And yeah, I met him, and you know, you don't know people, what they do in their private lives. So
that doesn't mean, so yeah, that is not enough to give me that Chris Tucker was doing what they were saying. And simply him being on a plane at one point for a charity event is crazy to try to imply that. He mentioned Joe Rogan doesn't want him on his show.
That would be like me being on Joe Rogan. Joe don't want me on there. I need to be on Shannon. Joe got 6 comedians that never been funny.
Joe Rogan has replied and said, yeah, I'd have him on my show. I'm 100% down. And of course he would, because at this point, Katt Williams has been the most successful person. You know, we see the draw that he was. I don't want Katt Williams to go in there. As it stands now, he's an insane draw. He already said everything he needed to say. What is another platform going to do for you? I think it detracts from what you did for yet another person. He's a very generous man. He told Shannon Sharpe, this is a space that you've created. You created a space for honesty, and you've had these liars on there referring to the other comedians. And he told him,
it's going to be in a dimension it's never been.
Yeah. So at this point, I want him to keep his interview on Shannon Sharpe. Don't take this to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is already incredibly successful. So then now he's talking again, addressing that thing from what Kevin Hart said.
Another fact, a hard fucking fact. Katt Williams did not own all the specials.
So he mentions
the fact that every time I do a tour or a special, you think, well, that's sponsored by somebody. Somebody did a good job. No, just the guy they're kicking around, just the one that might mentally not be all there. He's the one picking the outfits, writing this guy's material, booking the shows, making sure he gets there. He's the one hiring the other comedians.
This is in direct contrast to what Kevin Hart says. And he says,
right now, all this stuff is Googleable, is Google. You can Google it. It's all fucking researchable information.
Any of you guys, Google. Find me somewhere where someone else is claiming, hey, no, it's not true that Katt Williams produced his own shows. I mean, it does seem like these shows aren't promoted. When he mentioned, hey, I've done all these specials, you just don't know it because since I own them, then the studios aren't going to pay to produce those things. A lot of times you end up getting distribution deals with someone, with other companies, because otherwise they're not interested. So why would HBO be responsible for the distribution? They already got their views from airing it. Your job is to produce it and to help broadcast. And now here comes the P. Diddy part. Randomly he says,
because P. Diddy be wanting to party and you gotta tell him no.
Why he say that, bro? Why he say that? This starts dealing with his overarching theme again about how, you know, people turn down the dress.
Go do what you got to do. When you come back, I'm in your movie. Don't trip. I don't need to see the script or nothing. You know, we get in that office and this fool pull out Big Mama's House 2. I almost died. And I got to read this script in front of all these good white people, where this nigga want me to get in a dress with him. And I'm literally saying to everybody, why is he in a dress again? You already played the old lady as an FBI agent. We can play anything now. We can be playing a dog catcher this time. Why do we need to be in a dress? And I get so mad, I say, you don't want me. You want Brandon T. Jackson. And that's who they went and got. Twice I said it, they went and got him. Just like I'm telling you, I had that other dude's work. I had all of it. All I did was say, I want to punch it up so it's not offensive to real niggas. And
that was probably one of the larger points. It was about the other comedians and how they're not as honest as they claim to be and how they've stole work. But again, this is where he starts telling him. He told him because he's aware. He's like he said, he's been on some little finger.
Because in 30 years, I've done nothing but collect information, knowledge, and your secrets. So if you and a man was in a corner doing something you wasn't supposed to be doing,
you will tell it.
No, somebody come to tell me.
Okay.
I gather that. I value that. I'll pay for that. Come, tell me. I know so many things I shouldn't know, and they all know it.
And he knew, and he had been collecting all this information, and he found a platform, which I respect, which was Shannon Sharp. And he decided, I'm about to go ahead and give him all this information. And he told him it's going to be in a dimension it's never been in before. And I think this reminds me of when, do you guys remember when, who's a snitch? What's that little snitch? Snitch 9. When Snitch 9 went on the Breakfast Club and he said, this is going to be bigger than any interview you guys have done. And it did numbers. He was right. When someone got it, they know they got it. And he mentioned it and it did. It did those numbers. I'm glad he's irrelevant now, but that at the time, he was a draw. He had gotten out of prison after snitching on all those black people and, barely got any time. And he was like fine and living, even though it seemed like there was evidence that he had molested some. It was crazy. But the fact of the matter was he knew that he was enough of a draw. He was paying people to try to create controversy. Those people outed him. Thank you, snitching on him. I think he got his just desserts. I like that. I think in the same sense, Katt knew the draw he was. He knew how much information he had, and he knew what this platform was, and he knew what it was going to be. And it is. He said,
the greatest thing floating in 2024. Mark the words.
They talked about Prince. He gushed over Prince. I thought that was a good thing.
He was just an amazing individual. I was able to meet him when I was 12, and I knew him my entire life through all of his changes. I was able to assist him many times. If you go look at Prince's car collection, you'll see that Prince don't have not one car Katt Williams ain't got. He got the Prowler from Friday After Next in there. He got the same Bentley as me, because we share certain things. Our connection was lyrics, musical lyrics, women, and cars.
He now claims that his newest Netflix deal is in the 8-figure mark. That means at least 10 million. If you have 12 specials and they're doing so successful and you're this much of a draw, and he is a humongous draw, I think I can understand why Netflix would be willing to pay that. And they also probably don't want to deal with more drama, especially after the Monique situation. I don't see any reason why he's lying. I don't know that Netflix would come forward and admit that he claims that. And here's where he does something to backtrack something earlier. When he mentioned that Earthquake couldn't read, which is why he couldn't do movies, when Shannon Sharp says something positive about Earthquake, he says,
special. Yep, it was 20 minutes long.
It was good too, though.
It was. He's good. Not it was good. He's good.
See,
so it's not like he just hates the guy Earthquake. He didn't have a problem with him, but I think he was just spitting facts.
Because he wasn't able to translate the stand-up to the movie thing, TV. He took a hit.
Now he goes into Steve Harvey to the contrast, who says,
that's why when you hear these dudes talking about, oh, I didn't want to be a movie star, you just know it's disingenuous. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Yeah, oh, no, I just wanted to do a game show.
It's like, you wanted to be a movie star, as you said. You tried to take a part from somebody else. It's just, I think this was a part where it made me happy that he denied this. You clear up the air, because when you're in a spot where you're really kind of upping yourself and someone gives you that credit, you can try to be vague and be like, I help a lot of people, so that people do think you help the Migos. But instead, he just says it point blank. I don't think they've ever been in a place where they needed my help, and no, I didn't, right?
If I was given the opportunity to help them, would I? Of course I would. That's what I do. I'm a pro-black non-racist.
Then Shannon Sharp, just doing his homework, brings up
comedians would say women would bring them money and not say where it came from.
He goes in the very vague answer where he's just talking about how he employs women.
I believe that other than 4 jobs, I believe that a woman is better at any of them jobs than any man could be.
People say that they want to try to catch him in lies. A bevy of comedians have came forward expressing specifically that they were doing shows for Katt Williams and they were getting paid large amounts of money, much more than they were supposed to get, just because he was generous like that. Then Boosie came out with the video. So now you have that Boosie video. With that many people coming forward, this reminds me of my situation with Arturo, where I ended up needing to clear his name, and then Justin Wong and DeKill Sage and Ryan Hart and all of these prolific figures from all of these different people within the fighting game community from these different scenes all start saying, I've worked with Arturo for X amount of time and he's always done right by him. And sometimes that's the vindication you need, especially when you have people who are attacking or besmirching your character. You need someone to be able to say, nah, I've worked with them, especially when they're reputable people. And when you have all of these comedians come forward and make these statements, it starts sounding like, wait a minute, so you might actually be who they say you are. you might be the real deal. There's your receipt. And again, when I've done this for years and it's never been talked about until now, until there was a moment where it needed to be talked about and all the receipts are there, I don't know, man. So people were saying, well, where's the evidence that, he was homeless, or what are you talking about with all of these claims? And it's like, wait a minute. He convinced the New York Post. The New York Post posted articles talking about him being homeless and about him getting into college 12 years old and all of these things and having scholarships and all of this kind of information in his IQ and all. So if Katt Williams lied about that, he's the greatest liar of all time, because there were articles as old as 10 years ago that mentioned this from reputable news sources. So he must have told these stories in advance 10 years ago, left them there as plants so that he could go ahead and sit on it, become a controversial figure, then go into this interview and make these claims. So then people would start fact checking him. Then they'd have these reputable sources. That's too much work, man. I can't give nobody that credit. And if he is lying and he did all that work, he is a genius, a pathological genius. Because who can put in that much work? One of my things that he was talking about, again, part of his main point was when he's talking about these comedians helping him, he mentions,
wouldn't it be nice if somebody just showed up and gave him a little blessing? And he didn't have to suck me off for it. And thanks, Katt. And just, boy, I really needed it.
Again, that's part of that main overarching theme. Look, in the same way how I mentioned in the previous videos that the main themes were these things, I would say in this video, the main theme was, one, I'm a successful comedian, I'm rich, and I'm being able to do what I want to do. And I've done it without playing to the Hollywood machine. And he says,
so when it gone full circle and I'm one of the richest men that ever lived. And I don't mean, please don't look at my net worth. I saw my net worth. I had that on me.
That is the overarching theme. It's about the idea that Hollywood tries to emasculate, steal from, do all of these things to make you play their game. He chose not to play that game. And as a result of that, he found the success that he had. Being a musician, I've been in circles and I've been in positions where people have tried to make me do things to completely violate my entire character. Those who know me personally know what I'm about, know what I've been asked to do. I still have audio evidence of those things where they're literally trying to make me violate things that I know in a million years I would never do, that go against the very character of who I am and everything I stand for. Very successful people. And when I told those people no in those situations, I knew at that point, I'll never work with this person again. Tried to do it as passively as I possibly could. So I understand what it's like when people offer you the bag in exchange for you compromising on your character. Never asked me to do any gay stuff, but they were asking me to do evil stuff that I knew I wouldn't want to do. I think his thing was, it resonated with me when he said, I wanted to go ahead and make it as far as I could. When he said what he said about,
my goal was to get this far in Hollywood and still have a virgin asshole.
It kind of resonated. So when we hear these claims in Hollywood, again, this is conspiracy stuff. I don't know how much of it is true. The last thing that I'll talk about in this is one of my favorite parts. I'm just going to play it for you.
I look at it, I got it. That's how Diddy be feeling.
So overall, the whole point of this was to say that I do think Katt Williams does seem like he's a person of integrity and speaks mostly from a place of honesty. People were claiming when he was talking about running a 4.4, they said that wasn't true. Then a video came out of him running particularly fast. It shows a 4.47, but I don't know that that's actually what that was. Because one, we didn't see the entire video ourselves. Two, if he's running just the length of a basketball court, it's only 30 yards. 3, if this isn't official, then we don't know. But the fact of the matter is, he's demonstrating that he is still in particularly good shape. That was the point of doing that video. So almost everything that he's claimed so far has been validated. When he talks about his Netflix deal, Netflix will come out and say if it's not true. When he talks about all of these tours, I looked it up, and he has an insane amount of tours. When he talks about his specials, I can list them. Let a Play, Pimp Chronicles, Katt Williams' American Hustle, It's Pimpin', Pimpadelic, Catpocalypse, Priceless Afterlife, Katt Williams' Great America. I think World War III is now coming out. It came out in 2022. So he does have a great, and I don't think that's the exhaustive list of all of his specials. That's most of them. So he does have a lot of those things. And it's really insane because everything that Kevin Hart was saying.
Right now, all this stuff is Googleable, is Google. You can Google it. It's all fucking researchable information.
We can't fact check because if I don't go through the same channels as everyone else, then you're not going to be able to trace that. Just the same way how we have Forbes list. Do you think Forbes list is exhaustive? Do you not know that there are so many people who are wealthy outside of the Forbes list? The top 1% of the 1%, some of those elites, some of those families We don't have them on Forbes list. Remember when all that whole thing was outed about all those Hollywood celebrities who were hiding all their money overseas and all that stuff got outed and then we just kind of just stopped talking about it? When you start looking at it, and then Katt Williams himself says, I'm under IRS investigation. I'm broke. So if I'm producing everything myself, I'm hiring all of those people. If I'm the one that's like getting paid my ticket sales and my venue sales and all these things are deals and contracts that like aren't going to the public, then yeah, I'm not part of the machine. Forbes isn't going to be checking for me. Do I think he is as successful as he claims to be? Maybe. I don't know. What we do know, he is a particularly beloved and successful comedian. We do know that he wasn't lying about some of these things as far as people stealing these jokes. That's been vindicated. We do know that Ricky Smiley wasn't originally offered the role of Money Mike. We do know that he has been putting money in the pockets of all of these people that were in need just to be generous. We do know that he does have the most stand-up specials of any person. So much of this stuff was vindicated. At the end of the day, I hope you guys see all these receipts. There will be more. Kevin Hart responded and it was more or less just, fact check him. Ultimately, I wasn't the biggest fan of Katt Williams. I still have not watched the vast majority of his work. To be honest with you, Dave Chappelle is my favorite stand-up comedian. When my brother and I were having a conversation about Katt Williams and he told me, yeah, he thinks Katt Williams is particularly funny. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. So he said, all right, we'll just put on one of his specials. And he puts one on. Let's see if it's funny. We laughed throughout the entire thing. And I said, I'll give it to you. That was a very funny special. I need to watch more. I don't know. I wasn't familiar with him. I doubt he'll ever top Dave Chappelle for me personally. Now, my brother, Johan, is one of the funniest people I've ever met. He's one of the funniest people I know in real life. His favorite comedian is Katt Williams. Obviously, Dave Chappelle is a particularly cerebral comedian. I consider myself to be a pretty cerebral person. So then it makes all the sense in the world that Dave Chappelle would be. No one can take from the fact that Katt Williams is clearly a force to be reckoned with. This will probably go on to be the largest viewed interview in the world. And with this much scrutiny, let's look and see if anybody can find receipts of things that he said that aren't true. Ice Cube claims that the rape scene in Friday After Next isn't true. That's one. Tiffany Haddish wasn't married to a white man. That wasn't true. We'll see. The receipts will keep coming and they'll speak for themselves. We're waiting on the fact checks. And it seems like all the fact checks have validated him. I don't know. Are there any receipts that I'm missing? You guys tell me. Tell me anything that I'm missing in this video. Any receipts, anything that he said that has been a lie. And I'll find the receipt for you. And I'll reply it directly to you or I'll make another video about it. Until then, you know where to find me. Let me know if this is one of the longer videos that I've done. Tell me if this is the kind of stuff that you'd be interested in or if you'd rather I keep it super duper short. I just wanted an exhaustive one-stop shop so that we can see all of the things that he talked about and see how much of what he was saying is true, as opposed to just finding hit or miss little clips here and there. Peace.